Tourism is fueling economic growth in many African countries, and Africans themselves are increasingly the ones driving the demand. And that's according to a report by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. The UN report examining the role of tourism in economic development in Africa, however, says the high cost of travel within Africa and international travel companies are eating into the revenues that could be contributing to GDP of the countries investing heavily to attract visitors.
The report findings show the sector had grown across the continent from 2011 to 2014. Tourism attracted some $26 million, contributing 8.5% to GDP, rising from 6.8% in the period between 1995 and 1998. 4 out of 10 international tourists in Africa are coming from the continent itself. The report, which examines the role that tourism plays in Africa's development, was presented in New York on Wednesday, July the 5th, by UNCTAD Chief Chantal Line-Carpenter.
Tourism is growing in Africa. However, it could create much more impacts in terms of GDP growth for the countries of Africa, especially if we could include the indirect revenues linked to tourism, which are now limited, as well as increasing for the sub-Saharan Africa, the international arrival. The good news is a lot of the tourism is led by Africans themselves right now.
Tourism in Africa supports more than 21 million jobs. That's 1 in 14 jobs on the continent. However, Carpenter says that most African countries still face significant challenges and constraints in exploiting the potentials of tourism services in trade and economic development. According to her, more is needed to keep tourism revenue in African countries instead of it going back to the countries of origin of international tourism agencies and providers. The report made recommendations to African governments to greater liberalize air transport, promote free movement of persons, and ensure currency convertibility.
It is important to grow the local and regional businesses, to reduce the leakages. So oftentimes, if the international arrival are mostly from international airline, international travel agencies, international providers, that means the money gets repatriated back home in the country of origin of those businesses as opposed to stay locally. And therefore, it is important to grow the local business to make sure a lot of this, these new investment and these new return do stay in the country and get reinvested in infrastructures.
In Kenya, where tourism is a vital foreign exchange earner, visits fell by 25% in the first 5 months of 2015, affected by Islamist militants' attacks. Following political instability in Tunisia, total tourism revenue declined by 27% on average, from $3.5 billion in 2009 to $2.5 billion in 2011.